Hello, welcome to Parenting to Win. I'm your host, Clarinda McGrady. If you're new to this site, parentingtowin.com is your one-stop shop to all your parenting needs. Here, you'll find helpful tips and expert advice for all your parenting needs, no matter if you have kids in diapers or kids in dorms. Today, we'll be speaking with health and wellness expert Elizabeth Irvine. Elizabeth is a nationally recognized healthy eating expert. She is author to the amazing book, Healthy Mother, Healthy Child. She's a former ICU nurse, a yoga instructor, but most importantly, she's mother of 3. Stick around, you don't want to miss Elizabeth. Welcome back to Parenting to Win. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Elizabeth, you know what? You've got such a fascinating story about your transition into a healthy lifestyle. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How did that come about? So many people would assume that you've always had this way of living.
Oh, that's a great question because no, I haven't. I mean, I am a nurse, and you would think that nurses live healthy, but I wasn't particularly a healthy nurse at all. It wasn't until the birth of my our third child, my son, and he was born with a rare skin disorder called urticaria pigmentosa, a big word meaning that he had little red spots all over him. It looked like he'd been stung by about 100 bees. And he also had severe eczema. So the consequences of that is we had to wrap him like a little mummy, and there wasn't anything we could really do to treat him. And so it really, it was my own son becoming so ill that made me change the way that I was living. And it really started with very simple practices, such as eating well, paying attention to what the environment we lived in and the stress level that we had. I changed my life, and the life of my son began to change because of the healthy habits. And within 4 years of this new way of living, Sam was healed.
Wow, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was really considered a miracle.
Yes. Your book is fascinating. I've so enjoyed reading it. And one of the chapters in particular is called The Big 3. You talk about 3 of the physical challenges that face our kids today and how those challenges, how they relate to the foods that we eat. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, in my book, Healthy Mother, Healthy Child, I have a chapter that's called, the 3 big problems that we really deal with now in our healthcare system. And these are all problems that can be treated, with natural approach, better nutrition, more, just lots of healthier ideas instead of, using medication, which is what a lot of us typically, would run to. So the 3 problems that are the biggest are, one is the attention deficit disorder, which is diagnosed just in epidemic proportions. Yes. Not that there isn't that problem, it does exist, but I think there are a lot of children who do have that diagnosis that potentially, could be treated through natural means. Mm-hmm. Of course, childhood obesity is an epidemic, yes. And it's really in epidemic proportions. And then allergies. Mm. Allergies are another reason that people buy over-the-counter medicine and use probably way more conventional medicine than they need to. So these are the 3 problems that we have, and I think that each of these problems can really be addressed through healthy nutrition, mm-hmm. through reducing stress in our life, removing allergy triggers and all sorts of things in our environment that just make our life more simple, less stressful.
Absolutely. So many people use the term ADD so loosely nowadays. Can you tell us a little more exactly what it is?
Yes. Okay. ADD, the letters stand for Attention Deficit Disorder, and basically in a nutshell that just means having a problem with focusing attention. Mm-hmm. Of course, we all have problems focusing our attention, but in ADD specifically, those problems are magnified. Yes. And there are definitely children and people out there who need medicine for ADD, mm-hmm. but there is quite a few out there, in my belief, that could be managed, without conventional medicine.
Absolutely. And one of the questions I'm also concerned about is, You're right. So many people run to get medicated or to self-diagnose. But what are some ways that we can exhaust our possibilities through our health and through changing our lifestyle before we have to run to medicine?
Okay, that's a great question, because I think that America in general looks for the quick fix. And you know, if parents would take the time to, you know, observe their kids, spend time with their kids, ask their kids, you know, when they need things, rather than trying to always be ahead of them and expect them to, you know, schedule them down to the gnat's eyeball, but then wonder why they're stressed. Or, you know, the parent also has to think, I think, in terms of do as I do. And so if a mom or dad is, you know, so scheduled out and drinking caffeine and all day long, you know, and just very hyper, you know, then there's a good chance the child's going to follow in those footsteps. So if the parent can lead by example in ways of just less on their schedule, you know, a more relaxed atmosphere, healthy nutrition, I mean, real food that comes, you know, out of the ground, and you know, that isn't packaged and processed. And these simple things, they seem, you know, they seem so simple and that it wouldn't work, but honestly, when they put them together and lead by example, you know, amazing changes can happen.
Absolutely. From your professional opinion, why is obesity at such an alarming rate in the United States? Why is it such an epidemic among our youth?
It really is, and I think it's such a chronic problem, you know, and it takes so much on our healthcare system. You know, people who are dying from, you know, heart disease, and it's, you know, it just keeps going in this cycle. These kids are getting obese, and but the bottom line is, I really think it's that kids are eating too much and exercising too little. You know, lifestyles have changed. Even when you and I were kids, you know, we went outside and played, and we didn't have a lot of the packaged junk food. And I think we're moving away from it, but in our generation anyway, it wasn't, you know, as popular. I mean, you know, we grew up eating fruit, and it wasn't abnormal to eat an apple or a banana.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes now kids don't even know what real fruit is.
Yeah. You know, I want to back up a little. Can you actually define or be a little more specific about what obesity is? So many times we can visually look at someone and label them as, oh, that's an obese person. But what exactly is obesity?
Right. Well, obesity would be when your body fat is actually, you know, in a certain category with your height, you know, that and your weight, and they calculate the body fat. So when you're at a higher body fat percentage in your body, then that's when they make the definition of obesity. But it's hard to put a number on that, because you know, depending on who you are, your genetic makeup, your size and shape, you know, you know, there are guidelines that we use.
One of the areas I love in your book, you mentioned 3 foods and going to the grocery store. 3 foods you should be putting into your grocery cart, 3 foods you should be getting out of your grocery cart. Can you expound a little bit on that?
Yes. Let me think if I can remember what I want to tell you. But it would be, if I'm at the grocery store, you know, today, I would say that I would put, you know, anything that lives in the outside of the grocery store, so that the food that's in the outside of the grocery store is where the fresh food is. So when you're in the periphery of the grocery store, that's where your fruits, your vegetables, your dairy, and your meat and your breads are. So you want to put things in your grocery cart that are not packaged, that are not processed, and that come into the store every day.
Right.
If you can afford to splurge a little bit on organic, there's certain foods that, you know, would be nice to buy organic, especially meats and dairy products that you don't have hormones injected, you know. So that's much more readily available now. What I would say to keep out of your grocery cart are things that live on the inside of the aisles. So everything that's packaged, everything that's processed, everything that has a complicated word in the label. If you can't pronounce it, you know, you shouldn't put it in your body.
Awesome. I love the thought of that, staying, you know, moving from the outside in. One of the things I love about your book too, you have a whole family approach. And with that, I love the fact of thinking when we go to the grocery stores with our kids, can you give us some grocery store tips on what parents can look out for and what we can be teaching our kids to look out for in trying to incorporate a healthier lifestyle for our kids?
Yes, that's a great question. And I'll tell you just a little story that I had when one of my daughters was about 7. And we were at the grocery store, and we were in the chip aisle, you know, and I was trying to teach them at that point, you know, how important was it for them to understand what they were putting in their bodies. And so we were having these little conversations about it, and one of my daughters, who was just learning how to read, took a bag of potato chips and couldn't pronounce it. And from that day on, I didn't even have to say, maybe we shouldn't put those in our basket. She put them back on the shelf by herself. And so she took the ownership. And even to this day, my kids now are in college. They spend their money at eating good food. They spend their money on buying groceries that aren't the cheapest option.
Yeah, that's always great when they can own something, and then they're more likely to step into that role versus us as parents pushing it on them.
Yes, I always think it works that way.
Yeah. You mentioned in regards to organics can be pricey these days, but can you explain a little bit for people that want to splurge a little bit, some foods that you don't necessarily have to buy organic, but then those foods that are probably more of a must?
Yes. Well, a good example just in fruit, I was talking about fruit earlier. So banana is something that you wouldn't necessarily have to buy organic. An apple is something that would be better to buy organic. Also, you can think in vegetables. A potato is something that you would want to buy organic. It comes in the ground, and that has the tendency to absorb a lot of pesticides.
Elizabeth, I love the book. Where can viewers get a hold of a copy?
Thank you. Well, Healthy Mother, Healthy Child is available anywhere books are sold. They can also come to my website, which is elizabethirvin.com, and there's lots of free resources. There's guided relaxation podcasts, there's information on nutrition, healthy living, and they can learn more about the Jewelry Project.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciated having you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, I'm Clorinda McGrady, reminding you that raising your kids to be champions will make you a winner every time.